Well, I'm here with Don Jamieson, comedian from that metal show. Obviously, a lot of people know you from. You have a new album coming out on the 21st called Communication Breakdown on Metal Braid's Blade Records. I haven't, other than mispronouncing words, I got all that right, correct?
That wasn't bad. I've been doing stand up comedy for 20 years, and I still jumble up my words all the time. It's just part of the gig. If you're up on stage babbling for an hour, eventually you're gonna become a little dyslexic at some point. So no worries.
All right. Before we get into all of this, there's one thing I really wanted to touch on. I'm hoping I can get you to elaborate. I heard a little bit of you talking about your distaste for, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it, disgust for the Big Bang Theory. Can you share with me exactly what is entirely wrong with the Big Bang Theory? Because I've heard other comics say it too.
Well, it's this. This is what it is in a nutshell. It's just we're in the age of nerd humor, and look, I've been a rock and roll guy my whole life. My favorite comics are Dice, Richard Pryor, George Carlin. Guys who are groundbreakers, guys who always push the envelope, guys who always walk the edge at all times in their careers. I'm not watching nerd humor with this goofy I don't even know what kind of humor it is. Like, I don't even, thank God there's a laugh track, because I wouldn't even know where to laugh at some of these jokes. Because I don't go to Star Trek conventions. I don't like Star Wars. I don't like any of that stuff. So I don't get that humor. I don't like it. So that's it. I mean, the nerd humor, and look, it's popular, obviously. I mean, recording an album, in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and they're all millionaires. So what do I know?
Well, if they needed a recurring metalhead character, would you be up for it?
What are you kidding me? In a second, they'd be my favorite people in the world after that.
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
As you go in your career, you always want. I've been lucky. I've been able to do all the things I've wanted to do, pretty much the way I've wanted to do them.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a certain. I'm 50, dude. I love doing comedy. I love releasing albums, especially on a heavy metal label. But the truth is, man, after a while, you sort of go, look, I'll take one crappy sitcom just to get some FU money, and then I could just take a deep breath and relax, for the next, whatever is left of my career. So yes, I would definitely be willing to take any kind of recurring role on anything.
Well, I'm all for it. So whatever show needs you, they got my endorsement.
Well, thanks, man.
Do you think there are like nerds, especially like in our age group, because that find it offensive that it's now kind of okay to be like those people? I mean, like, because I don't know, you're a little bit older than me if you're 50, but you had to have a time in your life when it wasn't exactly the cool thing to wear a Kiss T-shirt or something like that. Now you can get them at freaking Target or Penny's or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Well, and this is going to make me sound like the biggest hypocrite, on earth, but you hit the nail on the head, dude. Because you know what it is, us metalheads, we're nerds too.
Yeah.
But we're just cooler nerds. Again, people in my age group.
We drink more.
Well, we definitely drink more. But we also, we went out and bought the vinyl, or even the people who, obviously still today when you buy CDs, but you went out, always got at the physical copy of whatever album, and you looked at the line notes and you studied them, and then you got into the artwork, and you saw who everybody thanked. And look, that's just as nerdy as the people who put on a Spock outfit and go to a convention. So, it's just a different type of nerdom, really.
Well, on that note, is there any record that you've bought at least 5 times in your life?
Yeah, there's definitely a bunch of Motorhead albums that I have. A Brit, like a German pressing of it.
It's important to have all the different countries.
Yeah, well, now that metal show is canceled, I don't buy as many different versions of albums as I used to. But yeah, I am definitely that way, where I've got to have, if this one's a limited edition, or if this, like you find an album with the songs in a different order, like it was pressed in India, so the songs are in a completely different order. So you're like, okay, I gotta spend $75 to get that, and all right, this one has a bonus track that you couldn't get in America, so I got to have that one. So yeah, it's total nerdum. It really is.
Well, you talked about the metal show a little bit. You mentioned it anyway. is it time for the faithful followers of out there like us, for like me, I should say, to kind of give up hope?
Well, I would say this, as Ozzy said on the last Sabbath album that they did originally out of the first 8, don't you ever say die.
Mm-hmm.
It's look, when we get kicked down and knocked around in hard rock and metal, and we always do, and then and your favorite bands will go away, but they always come back somehow, don't they? So,
Sure.
I would always say, don't give up hope. We're trying like crazy to find a new home. In fact, I just got off the air with Eddie Trunk, and we talked about a couple options for a new home for it. So there's things happening, but I don't think anybody will ever forget it completely. So hopefully, if and when we come back, and everyone will jump back on with us, because we would always also keep the same integrity that we always, and silliness that we always did it before.
Yeah, and I have to say, I miss your sideburns. I just seeing them every week. It was such a thing. No, I mean, I love the frickin' show. There's so many classic bits. There's a couple I wanted to talk about. I swear it was when you guys were doing like one of your top fives at the beginning, and Eddie was trying to make the case for his entire list. And I think it was Detroit Rock City. He talked about taking you on a journey, and then you just ran with that for almost the rest of the show. For what it's worth, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was, I think it was Judas Priest. We were talking about the Hellion Electric Eye.
Yes,
and talked about, see how it did, the song takes you onto a journey, and then I spread my arms out like I was the Hellion from Judas Priest, and I'm taking Eddie Trunk on a journey through through metal space or wherever, and
I swear you referenced it later in the episode too, but whatever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, once he starts getting comfortable again, you gotta, take another shot.
And you've had Peter and Ace from Kiss on a couple times, each, but one thing that struck out for both of them is how confused they were their first time on by the whole throwdown, the premise of it. Do you happen to recall that? I think Peter was given a choice between Bonham and Neil Peart, and he picked John Bonham. And then when it came time for him to quantify his pick, he just told like a story about being on tour with Rush.
Right. Well, that was the fun thing about doing that. I mean, they weren't the only people confused. Sometimes we would pick one side and be really adamant about it, but then after talking about it for 45 seconds to a minute, you could easily be swayed to the other side, because the truth is, debate and doing lists and things like that are so much fun, and they're so fun to debate. But at the end of the day, what you're really trying to do is just to keep the conversation out there and keep it going with all the people in the metal community. And that's what it was really all about. There was no right or wrong answers, because as right as you ever thought your answer was about something, there could always be somebody who will make you, change your mind, or maybe, just go back the other way a little bit on it. So, I was always the guy who had to sort of play the devil's advocate in that one, because if everybody picked one over the other, I always had to pick the opposite. And
you always did well supporting ones that you could almost tell as a viewer that he's not really taking this side. But.
Well, it's tough when you get, we did Queen versus Queensryche, and it's like I know everybody's picking Queen, and of course I would have picked Queen, but I had to prepare a defense for Queensryche, and I didn't do too bad. I was actually pretty proud. I didn't get destroyed over it, but I kind of made a case for Queensryche.